Hello, friends. Let's begin today's session. So, on the last occasion, I think day before yesterday, we have discussed section 9 and the notification specifically, there were rate notifications, multiple rate notifications. So, I chose not to cover those rate notifications because that is somewhat discussion of tariff, and our endeavor in this session is to discuss the law and the rules. So, then we were at circulars. So I believe today we'll be starting from circulars. Let me share the file first. Yes. Just to inform all of you and just to remind whosoever have bought the book Master Guide to GST Act and Rules, which is now there. Earlier it was not there available in the market very easily, but now it is available. Whosoever have taken that can open up those pages also and note down if they want to note anything in the book itself, so that whenever they will refer, that can be helpful. Or they can also refer the ebook, because ebook has already been also been supplied free of cost along with the hard copies. So now we'll be starting with this circulars, and why I have emphasized on the book to be kept in your hands along with the act, because now the act and rules is there in the book. So what you can do is you can scan this QR code and you can also read along with me. That will help you to get an idea about this entire circular. And even if you want to note something, you can note down there also. So we'll be starting with the first circular, which is 6/2017. This is the circular on your screen. Let me just, yes. It's 27th August 2017, dated 6/2017. Issue related to classification and GST rate on lottery tickets. Friends, please recollect what we have discussed on, I think, day before yesterday with relation to section 9. Section 9 is a section which deals with the levy and collection of tax. It has not to be confused with section 7 or section 8, because section 7 or section 8 were specifying the scope of the taxable event and the composite and mixed supply respectively. So therefore, whether a particular activity or a particular transaction is going to fall within the purview of the supply or not, that is to be determined by way of section 7. Then whether it is a bundle supply, then in that case it is going to be classified as a mixed supply, or it is going to be classified as a composite supply. That was section 8. But section 9 is that any transaction which is falling within the scope of supply and not being covered into schedule 3 of the CGST Act, prima facie seems to be a taxable supply. I'm repeating, any supply or any activity or transaction which falls within the scope of supply as per section 7 and not covered within the purview of schedule 3 of the CGST Act seems to be prima facie a taxable supply, and therefore the applicability of tax is there. And to determine which tax is going to be applicable, at what rate it is going to be applicable, and at what rate it is going to be applicable, and at which value it is going to be made applicable. For that, we were having section 9, which was dealing with the levy and collection of the tax. And please appreciate, unless there is a provision to levy and collect the tax, any tax, any fees, any duty, any cess cannot be levied. So section 9 is of utmost importance. And now we are dealing with the circular. So this is the circular which we'll be dealing with today, is classification and rate pertaining to lottery tickets. Now, when I say lottery tickets, Please go back and refer Schedule 3 of the CGST law. Schedule 3 of the CGST law was having one entry which says that actionable claims other than lottery, betting, or gambling, meaning thereby any actionable claim is not leviable, is falling within the purview of taxability. So therefore, all the actionable claims are outside the purview of being treated as either supply of goods or supply of services. Therefore, no tax on actionable claim except betting, lottery, or gambling. So therefore, we will be discussing today lottery. Supply of lottery has been treated as supply of goods under the Central Goods and Services Tax Act. So first and foremost, it is treated as goods. Why it is written specifically that it has to be treated as goods? The purpose is that now you will have to go and see the tariff which is pertaining to goods and not the tariff which is pertaining to services. That is the intention and the purpose, to identify which rate is going to be made applicable into this. Now, accordingly, based on the recommendation of the GST Council, the GST rate for supply of lottery has been notified under GST rate notification relating to CGST, IGST, UTGST, and SGST. However, entries in respective notifications mention classification for lottery as dash. This is how it is mentioned, and therefore the confusion, which is going to be now removed by virtue of this circular. In this connection, references have been received inter alia stating that due to discrepancy in the code allotted, because the code is dash, that is lottery is defined as goods, but code allotted for lottery is under services. When you go and refer the tariff of services, you will find the entry of lottery there with the tax rate. The assessees are not able to upload the return or deposit the tax in time. This is what was the problem which has been addressed by this circular of number 6 of 6/2017, dated 27th August 2017. Now, how it is clarified? In this connection, references have been received inter alia stating that due to discrepancy in the code allotted, lottery is defined as goods, and therefore it is not possible for them to pay the tax and upload the returns. Now, the matter has been examined. It should be noted that the process of filing return is linked with rate of tax specified for supply. Further, there is complete clarity about the rate of tax on lotteries. There is no ambiguity, there is no doubt as to which rate will be applicable to a lottery. As mentioned above, in GST, lottery is goods, and classification indicated in relevant notification for lottery is hyphen or a dash, which means any chapter. That being so, it is clarified that classification for lottery is respective CGST, IGST, UTGST, and SGST notification shall be any chapter to the first schedule to the Company Customs Tariff Act 1975, and tax on lottery should be paid accordingly as prescribed at prescribed rates of 12% or 28%, as the case may be. So therefore, they are trying to clarify that it will be taxable at the rate of 12 or 18%. And since it is written dash, the classification will be, it can fall in any chapter of the first schedules to the Customs Tariff Act, and tax on lottery will have to be paid accordingly at the prescribed rates. This is how they have clarified. Now, practically, how this is being handled, whether it is being handled correctly or not, needs to be looked into. But since we are not into discussion of all those things, so I'll not be pressing much. More, next is 11 of 2017, clarification on taxability of printing contracts. Now, this also I think we have read earlier also, but no worries, we'll cover it again. Now, in printing, there is always a confusion, friends. And that is the reason why this has been issued as a circular, or clarification has been given. Friends, please appreciate, a printing can be a service also, as well as a printing can be covered into goods also. For example, if I am handing over my material and asking the other person, say for example, printing of a or dyeing and printing on a cloth. So printing is a service which is being provided and therefore it should be classified under the term service. But when I am asking my stationery provider or my printer that you purchase the material and this is the design which I want, please print this design along with the material and supply it to me. May it be an envelope, may it be a visiting card. Then the question arises whether it will be classified under service or it will be classified as goods. That is the question which was addressed by this circular. I'm repeating, whether it will be when it is let's say visiting card which is supplied along with the printing services, whether it is going to be a supply of goods or it is going to be supply of service. These are certain questions which are being raised. I think while discussing the other provisions, section 7 and all, we have already discussed it, but no problem, we'll be discussing it again. Clarification on taxability of the printing contracts. Requests have been received to clarify whether supply of books, pamphlets, brochures, envelopes, annual reports, leaflets, cartons, boxes, etc., printed with, now this is important, printed with design, logo, name, address, or other contents supplied by the recipient of such supplies would constitute supply of goods falling under chapter 48 or 49 of the first schedule to the Customs Tariff Act, or supply of services falling under heading 9989 of the scheme of classification of services annexed to notification number 11/2017 of central tax rate. So what is the question? They are asking whether it is going to be classified as supply of goods and therefore chapter 48 or 49 of the first schedule to the customs tariff, or they will be classified as supply of service under heading 9989. Which is going to be the actual classification is being asked for. Therefore, in the above contest, it is clarified that supply of books, pamphlets, brochures, envelopes, annual reports, leaflets, cartons, boxes, etc., printed with logo, design, name, address, or other contents supplied by the recipient. The important is you want design, name, address, logo, everything on that particular printed material, and you are supplying. So therefore, supplied by the recipient of such printed goods are composite supplies. And the question whether such supplies constitute supply of goods or services would be determined on the basis of what constitutes the principal supplies. Therefore, it is very clear that if I'm giving my design, logo, and everything, and I'm asking him that you purchase the material or you have the material, along with that material, you please print the this design and logo and everything on this particular material and send it to me. So whether it is going to be a supply of goods or services, this is the question, and its determination would be depending on the principal supply. So one thing is very clear, it is a composite supply. If I'm approaching the person, what is the intention? Can't we say that the intention is to having the printed visiting cards? Let's see how it is dealt with in this particular circular. Principal supply has been defined in section 2, clause 90 of the Central Goods and Services Tax Act as supply of goods or services, which constitutes the predominant element of a composite supply, and to which any other supply forming part of that composite supply is ancillary. So therefore, what does it say? It says when two or more goods or services or both are being supplied, then what constitutes the predominant element of that particular composite supply, and to which any other forming part of the composite supply is an ancillary. So therefore, if I'm asking for a printed material, then the material printing service may be the principal or the predominant supply, whereas the material has to be the ancillary, or vice versa. That is the question. Now, the answer is, in case of printing of books, pamphlets, brochures, annual reports, and the like, where only content is supplied by the publisher, or the person who owns the usage rights to the intangible inputs while the physical inputs, including paper, used for printing belong to the printer. Supply of printing of the content supplied by the recipient of supply is the principal supply, as we have discussed, that whatever design, whatever material you are giving to him, that becomes the principal supply or the predominant supply, is the principal supply, and therefore such supplies would constitute the supply of service, falling under heading 9989 of the scheme of classification of service. This is very clear, and I don't think that there should be any doubt in any of our minds, because if I am giving a design, I am giving a logo, and he is only giving the services of printing, undoubtedly the material is also supplied with him. So therefore, it constitutes the supply of service and supply of goods together. But the principal supply in this case would be, I was intending to have the printed cards, and therefore printing service was what I was looking forward for. Now, what does it say in the other side on the contents of whether it is going to be supply of goods? If yes, then on what situation? In case of supply of printed envelopes, letter cards, printed boxes, tissues, napkins, wallpaper, etc., falling under chapter 48 or 49, printed with design, logo, etc. What does it say? In case of supply of printed envelopes, letter cards, printed boxes, tissues, napkins, wallpaper, falling under chapter 48 or 49. But printed with design, logo, etc., supplied by the recipient of goods, but made using physical inputs, including paper belonging to the printer. Predominant supply is that of goods, and the supply of printing of the content is ancillary to the principal supply of goods. And therefore, such supplies would constitute supply of goods falling under the respective heading 48 or 49, and therefore it will become supply of goods. So what is the difference? Let's see. What is the original? It says printing of books, pamphlets, brochures, etc., etc. And further it says where only content is supplied by publisher or the person who owns the usage rights of intangible inputs. If I have a logo, so I'm supplying a logo. While the physical inputs, including paper for printing, belongs to the printer. Now, what is in the second? It says supply of printed envelopes, letter cards, printed boxes, etc., etc., printed with design logo supplied by the recipient, but made used physical inputs. So therefore, we need to understand that whether we are going for printing of a particular thing, or we are going to accept a supply of printed materials wherein something is already ready, an envelope is already ready. What we are doing is we are saying them to print our logo into it and supply it back to us. So that will be classified as a supply of goods, and therefore chapter 48 and 49 will be applicable. So now with this context, let us read once again. What does it say? It says in the case of printing of books, pamphlets, brochures, annual reports, and the like. So these are all service related. How? Because pamphlet, you are giving the content where only content is supplied by the publisher. You are not supplying anything else except that content. Or the person who owns the usage rights to the intangible inputs. You have the usage rights and therefore you are using it. While the physical inputs, including paper used for printing, belong to the printer. Then supply of printing. What is the supply? It is not supply of printed material. It is supply of printing of the content supplied by the recipient of supply is the principal supply. And such supply would constitute the supply of service. This is books, pamphlets, etc. Now, what is a case wherein this supply is of printed envelopes, letter cards, printed boxes, tissues, napkins, wallpaper, etc., which are already covered into 48 and 49. If those are printed with some design or logo which is being supplied by you, that doesn't mean, because your intention was not to have those printed materials only, or those, let's say, visiting card and having an envelope with your logo. These two things are different. So envelope may be ready and you have only given the logo and he has printed that logo on you on this. that doesn't mean that the principal supply would become the supply of service. It will be the goods only, and therefore they have clarified this, that in those cases wherein the intention is for supply or for getting a supply of a printed material, then even if you are giving some material to him for printing, print material in the sense some logo or design or something, even in that case it will fall within chapter 48 and 49 and will be supply of goods. I hope I've tried to clarify as much as possible. I hope I am able to do that. If any confusion is there, then certainly we can address, because most of us who are attending these sessions are known to me, and they can very well ask at any point in time whenever they are comfortable. Moving to 12/2017, it says clarification regarding applicability of GST on superior kerosene oil retained for the manufacture of linear alkyl benzene. So, if it is retained for the manufacture of lab, then in that case, what will be the applicability of GST on SKO? Let me just open up the file. Yes, the file is on the screen. 12/2017, 26th October 2017. Clarification regarding applicability of GST on SKO retained for the manufacture of lab. Briefly stated, references have been received related to applicability of GST on the SKO retained for the manufacture of lab. In this context, lab manufacturers have stated that they receive superior kerosene oil from a refinery, say IOCL. They extract paraffin and paraffin from SKO, which they are receiving from these refineries, and return back the remaining of SKO to the refinery. So they are extracting N paraffin, and the remaining of the SKOs are being refined to the returned to the refinery. In this context, the issue has arisen as to whether in this transaction GST would be levied on SKO sent by IOC for extracting N paraffin, or only on the N paraffin quantity extracted by the lab manufacturers. Further, doubt have also been raised as to whether the return of remaining kerosene by lab manufacturers would separately attract GST in such transaction. These are the two questions, that whether the entire supply of the supply of SKO will be taxable, or only the extraction of N taxable. And when we are returning back the SKO or the remaining of the SKO, then what will be the taxability of it? That is, these are the two questions which are raised. The matter was examined. Lab manufacturers generally receive SKO from a refinery through a dedicated pipeline. On an average of 15 to 17% of the total quantity of SKO received from refinery is retained, and balance quantity ranging from 83 to 85% is returned back to the refineries. The retained SKO is towards extraction of normal paraffin, which is used in the manufacturing of lab. In this transaction, consideration is paid by lab manufacturers only to the quantity of retained SKO. So now इन्होंने अभी ये भी क्लैरिफाई कर दिया कि भैया ये जो रिटेन करते हैं केवल उसी अमाउंट पे ये कंसिडरेशन पे करते हैं. दैट इज द ओनली अमाउंट ऑन विच द कंसिडरेशन इज पेड. So in this context, the GST Council, in its 22nd meeting held on 6th October 2017, discussed the issue and recommended for issuance of a clarification that in this transaction, GST will be payable by the refinery on the value of net quantity of SKO retained for the manufacture of lab. So therefore, whatever is being retained, 13 से 17, 15 से 17% का जो एक bracket था, जो वो retain करते हैं. I'm sorry, I will have to use some part of the discussion in Hindi also, because many of the participants are requesting that you also include Hindi in the discussion. So I'll try to mix and match. So whatever is being retained, the range has already been given in the paras up to this circular, 15 to 17%. So जो भी वो retain कर रहे हैं SKOs, उसके ऊपर की जो टैक्स लायबिलिटी है वो रिफाइनरीज को, यानी इस एग्जांपल में जैसे IOCL था तो IOCL को भरना पड़ेगा. Accordingly, it is hereby clarified that In aforesaid case, GST will be payable by the refinery only on the net amount of SKO retained for the manufacture of lamp. So, refinery would be liable to pay GST on such returned quantity of SKO when the same is supplied by it to any other person. So this is quite obvious. आपने 100 क्वांटिटी किसी को दी, उसमें से उसने 5 क्वांटिटी रख दी, 95 क्वांटिटी आपको वापस कर दी. तो कंसेप्ट ये है, ओरिजिनली अगर हम इसको आइसोलेटेड ट्रांजेक्शन माने, तो जब मैं 100 सप्लाई कर रहा हूँ तो मुझे इनवॉइस करना चाहिए, या फिर आई विल हैव टू शो गुड सेंट ऑन अप्रूवल. 5 उसने रिटेन कर लिया, 95 वापस भेज दिया. अगर मैंने सप्लाई दिखाया तो अगेन आई हैव टू रिसीव इट बैक और सेल्स रिटर्न व्हाटसोएवर. If I have not shown as a supply good sent on approval, then I will say that 5 is confirmed, 95 is not confirmed. फिर जब मैं वो 95 फर्दर सप्लाई करूंगा तो उसके ऊपर टैक्स लगेगा. As simple as that. So they are also saying the same thing, that if let's say 17% is retained, then 17% tax liability will arise to the refinery on the moment it is retained, and then remaining 83% when it will be further supplied to a third person, then in that case again the taxability will arise. So this is how it has been clarified in these notifications. So now let us go back to see which is the other circular that we have to cover. The next circular is 13/2017. There are many circulars as per me in this section 9. So 13/2017. Let's see what does that circular provides for. Yes, this is the circular on your screen. 27th October 2018. Clarification on unstitched salwar suits. Now, there is a efforts. There has been certain efforts put by me also in getting this circular, because there were a lot of hue and cry in Surat, specifically because it's very famous for the garment I will not say garment manufacturing, but for the saris and the dress materials. So what was happening is, if I'm supplying a fabric, then the rate was 5%. Rather, it is still 5%. If I'm not supplying the fabric and if it falls into the made up or any garment or any semi-stitched, then the rate was getting different rate was applicable. So there are various situations wherein a fabric is cut into 3 pieces. There is no stitch, nothing. It is not semi-stitched. There is nothing of that sort. Then there was a lot of confusion that what rate will be applicable, whether it will fall into the definition or into the purview of fabric, or it will go beyond it will be treated as a semi-finished because it is cut into 3 pieces, or what will happen. So that has been clarified now. कि अनस्टिच सलवार सूट अगर है तो उसकी क्लैरिफिकेशन उसकी दी गई है कि उसको हम कहाँ क्लासिफाई करेंगे. तो डाउट हैव बीन रेज्ड regarding the classification of cut pieces of fabrics under GST. It has been represented that before becoming ready-made articles or an apparel, the fabric is cut from bundles or thans and sold in that unstitched state. The consumers buy these set or pieces and get it stitched to their shape and size. जैसे आप अपनी शर्ट पीस पैंट पीस लेके आते हो, तो at that moment, in spite of a fact कि वो कट करके आपको दिया जा रहा है, but that is not to be classified differently. It has to be classified only as a fabric. भले वो 100 मीटर की जगह अभी आपके पास 2 मीटर है, but that has to be clarified as fabric. So that is the concept कि अगर आप उसको कट करके भी बेच रहे हैं, तो भी it still remains fabric, which is being clarified now. Fabrics are classifiable under Chapter 50 to 55 of the first schedule to the Customs Tariff Act 1975 on the basis of their constituent materials and attract a uniform GST rate of 5% with no refund of the unutilized input tax credit. ये अक्टूबर 2017 में निकला था. उसके बाद जुलाई 2018 में there is an amendment, or rather the notification which was blocking that no unutilized input tax credit refund will be given has now been done away with. So ये पुराना है, इसलिए we are reading this, but this is just to update that 20/2018 से बाद में ये restriction भी निकाल दिया उन्होंने. Mere cutting and packing of fabrics into pieces of different lengths from bundles or thans will not change the nature of these goods, and such pieces of fabrics would continue to be classifiable under the respective heading as the fabric and attract 5% GST rate. So this is what they have clarified कि भाई आप उसको कट भी कर देंगे, अगर उसको मल्टीपल साइजेस के अलग अलग कट करके आप पीसेस बना देते हैं, दैट डजंट मीन कि वो उसका क्लासिफिकेशन चेंज हो जाएगा. स्टिल इट विल कंटिन्यू टू बी called as fabric only. And therefore, since it is a fabric, it will continue to be taxed at the rate of 5%, will fall into the same chapters. That is what the clarification was. There is a long history about all this, how we have done this, but because time will not permit, I'll not go into that. 16 of 2017, क्योंकि हम बहुत मुश्किल से तो मिलते हैं. Today, after almost 10 days, I'm there in my at my residence. So, and most probably I'll try. Tomorrow it's Saturday. Generally, we are not there on Saturdays. We do not conduct. But I think you just watch the link. There may be some information shared, wherein maybe we'll have some session tomorrow also, maybe for some time. But I intend to do a session tomorrow also. And hopefully, thankfully, till Tuesday, I'll not be traveling. Most probably, if I'll not be traveling, then we'll be having the sessions in routine till Tuesday. 16/2017 clarifications regarding applicability of GST and availability of ITC in respect of certain services. So, it is dealing with two questions. One is the applicability of GST, and two, in case GST is applicable, then whether the credit will be given or not. This is an important thing because आज की डेट में अगर आप देखेंगे तो लीज होल्ड लैंड पे ये बहुत बड़ा इशू रेज हो चुका है, बट the discussion is altogether different, so not going into that. We'll be restricting our discussion only to this circular. 15th November 2017, clarification regarding applicability of GST and availability of ITC in respect of certain services. First issue, is GST applicable on warehousing of agricultural produce such as tea, that is black tea, white tea, etc., processed coffee beans or powder pulses, dehusked or split, jaggery, processed spices, processed dry fruits, processed cashew nuts. Everything is processed. Whether GST is applicable on this or not, because these are the agricultural produces and warehousing of these agricultural produces. So whether GST will be applicable or not, that is the question. As per GST notification 11/2017 and notification 12/2017, the GST rate of loading, unloading, packing, storage or warehousing of agricultural produce is nil. Please bear in mind, it is only qua agricultural produce. So therefore the question is whether processed coffee, whether jaggery, whether processed spices, these are falling within the agricultural produce. If yes, then certainly it is going to be nil rate. But if no, then this clarification will help us. Agricultural produce in the notification has been defined to mean any produce out of cultivation of plants and rearing of all life form of animals except the rearing of horses for food, fiber, fuel, raw material, or other similar products. What does it say? It says any produce out of cultivation of the plants and rearing of all forms of animals except the rearing of horses for food, fiber, fuel, raw material, or other similar products on which either no further processing is done or such processing is done as is usually done by a cultivator or producer, which does not alter its essential characteristics but makes it marketable for primary market. So no processing either, or if some processing is done, that is done in a usual course by the cultivator to make it marketable. Then it will be treated as a agricultural produce. Now let us correlate this with the products that have been discussed in this particular issue. Tea used for making the beverage, such as black tea, green tea, white tea, is a processed product made in tea factories after carrying out several processes such as drying, rolling, shaping, refinery, oxidation, packing, etc. on green leaf and is processed output of the same. So if it is processed, then certainly it is out of the agricultural produce. Therefore, Green tea leaves are not tea in agricultural. Tea is the agricultural produce. Eligible for exemption, available for loading, unloading, packing, storage, or warehousing of agricultural produce. Same is the case with coffee obtained after processing of coffee beans. Similarly, processing of sugarcane into jaggery. Similarly, processing of sugarcane into jaggery changes its essential characteristics. Thus, jaggery is also not an agricultural produce. Pulses, commonly known as dal, are obtained after dehusking or splitting or both. The process of dehusking or splitting is usually not carried out by the farmers or at the farm level, but by the pulse millers. Therefore, pulses which are dehusked or split are also not agricultural produce. However, whole pulse grains such as whole gram, rajma, etc., are covered in the definition of agricultural produce. In view of the above, it is hereby clarified that processed products such as tea, which is black tea, white tea, etc., processed coffee beans or powders, pulses, jaggery, processed spices, processed dry fruits, processed cashew nuts, etc., fall outside the definition of agricultural produce given in notification 11 bar 2017 and 12 bar 2017 and corresponding notification issued under IGST and UTGST, and therefore the exemption from GST is not available for their loading, packing, warehousing, etc. And that any clarification issued in the past to the contrary in the context of service tax or VAT is no more relevant. So if any specific circular has been issued prior to this, then that will have no, what I can say, validity. Moving further, the next issue which has been dealt with in this particular circular is GST leviable on interstate transfer of aircraft engines, parts and accessories for use by their own airlines. Let's say there is an airline Bombay based. Now an aircraft is there at Delhi, which requires certain parts. Now this Bombay company has those parts and it is sent to the Delhi location. So it is to be used by their own airline. It is not supplied further to any third person. Whether this will attract GST, whether GST will be leviable, that is the question. It says under Schedule 1 of the CGST Act, supply of goods or services are both between related persons or between distinct persons as specified in Section 25 when made in course or furtherance of business is, even if without consideration, attracts GST. Schedule 1. It is hereby clarified that credit of GST paid on aircraft engines, part or accessories will be available for the discharging GST on interstate supply of such aircraft engine parts and accessories by way of interstate stock transfers between distinct persons as specified in Section 25 of the CGST Act, notwithstanding that credit of input tax charged on consumption of such goods is not allowed for supply of service of transport of passengers by air in economy class at a GST rate of 5%. So what does it say? It says credit will be available for the transfers, whether it is intrastate or interstate, between the distinct persons. But then it starts, it uses a non-withstanding clause, not non-option clause. It says, notwithstanding that credit of input tax charged on consumption of such goods is not allowed for supply of service of transportation of passengers by air in economy class at GST, which is paying GST at the rate of 5%. So for those liabilities to be discharged, this input tax credit cannot be utilized. Otherwise, this input tax credit can be utilized. Other than economy class, that can be utilized, or for any other further purposes. Let's say you are selling an aircraft, reselling it, then in that case also, it can be utilized. That is what is clearly provided. Next is GST leviable on general insurance policies provided by a state government to employees of the state government, police personnel, employees of the electricity department, or a student of colleges, private schools, etc., where premium is paid by the state government and where premium is paid by the employees. So what will happen in these two situations? One, the premium is paid by the state government. Two, when the premium is paid by the employee himself. It is hereby clarified that services provided to the central government, state government, union territory under any insurance scheme for which total premium is paid by the central government, state government, union territory are exempt from GST under serial number 40 of the notification 12/2017. Further, services provided by state government by way of general insurance to employees of the state government, police personnel, employees of the electricity department, or students are exempt by entry 6 of 12/2017, which exempts services by central government, state government, union territory, or local authority to the individuals if it is an insurance service. So therefore, in both the cases, the tax leviability will not be there. I hope you all might be recollecting that we have already done with these circulars, but now since it is coming in the CRA team, we'll certainly be touching upon. Now 19/2017. Just a moment. Yeah, it is there on your screen. Clarification on taxability of custom milling of paddy. This also we have touched upon. Anyways, let us do it again. 20th November 2017. Representations have been received seeking clarification on whether custom milling of paddy by rice millers for civil supply corporations is liable to GST or is exempt under serial 55 or 12/2017. This is the question. The matter has been examined. Serial 55 exempts carrying out an intermediate production process such as job work in relation to cultivation of plants and rearing of all forms of animals, all life forms of animals, except the rearing of horses for food, fiber, fuel, raw material, or other similar products or agricultural produce. Agricultural produce has been defined in the notification to mean, this we have already read. Job work has been defined under section 268 of the CGST Act, treatment or process undertaken by a person on goods belonging to another registered person. Further, Schedule 2 GST Act, any treatment or process which is applied to another person's goods is a supply of service. Milling of paddy is not an intermediate production process. In relation to cultivation of plants, it is a process carried out after the process of cultivation is over and paddy has been harvested. Further, processing of paddy into rice is not usually carried out by the cultivators, but by the rice millers. Milling of paddy into rice also changes its essential characteristics. Therefore, milling of paddy into rice cannot be considered as an intermediate production process in relation to cultivation of plants for food, fiber, or other similar products or agricultural produce. So therefore, it is not an agricultural produce as per them. It is not a process which is required for cultivation. It is after the process of completion is cultivation is completed. In view of the above, it is clarified that milling of paddy into rice is not eligible for exemption under serial number 55 of notification 12/2017 and corresponding notifications issued under IGST and UTGST. GST rate on services by way of job work in relation to all food and food products falling under chapter 1 to 22 has been reduced from 18% to 5%, while notification number 31/2017. Therefore, it is hereby clarified that milling of paddy into rice on job work basis is liable for GST at the rate of 5% on processing charges and not on the entire value of rice. So they are clarifying that 5% is now which is the new rate which is applicable, and it will be applicable only on the processing charges, not on the entire value. Let's do go through the another circular, the next circular, which is 20/2017. It's there on your screen. 22nd November 2017. Issues which are related to classification and GST rate on terracotta idols. The GST rate on idol made of clay is nil. Serial number 135 capital A of the schedule notification 2/2017, which is goods. In this connection, references have been received as to whether this entry would cover idols made of terracotta. The matter has been examined as terracotta is clay based terracotta idols will be eligible for nil rate under serial 135A of notification 2 by 2017. Maybe is liable on repairs and maintenance done for such goods. But if a repair and maintenance is done for such goods, then maybe the GST will be leviable. Otherwise, it is covered into the nil rate of duty. So this was going back to the original file, that is now 20 we have done. Let us do this also. This is next circular is 22 bar 2017. Clarification on issues regarding treatment of supply by an artist in various states. And supply of goods by artists from galleries. What is the treatment of these supplies? Various representations have been received, and therefore this is being done for uniformity. I'm directly going to para 2. It is seen that clause C of sub rule 1 of rule 55 of the CGST rules provides that the supplier shall issue a delivery challan for the initial transportation of goods, where such transportation is for reasons other than by way of supply. Further, sub rule 3 of the said rule provides that the said delivery challan shall be declared as specified in rule 138 of the said rules. It is also seen that sub rule 4 of rule 55 of the said rules provides that where the goods being transported are for the purpose of supply to the recipient, but the tax invoice could not be issued at the time of removal of goods for the purpose of supply, the supplier shall issue a tax invoice after delivery of goods. So therefore, the challan is mandatory. Combined reading of the above provisions indicates that artwork for supply on approval basis can be moved from place of business to the registered person, that is artist, to another place within the same state or to a place outside the state on a delivery challan, along with the e-way bill wherever applicable, and the invoice may be issued at the time of actual supply of artwork. So if you are sending on approval, मैंने एक आपको पिक्चर बनाई, एक ड्राइंग बनाई है, आपको मैं अप्रूवल के लिए भेज रहा हूँ, it can be sent without payment of tax on a simple challan, delivery challan, and when the confirmation will come, then the invoice can be issued. It is also clarified that supplies of the artwork from one state to another state will be interstate supply and attract in IGST in terms of section 5 of the IGST Act. It is further clarified that in case of supply by artist through galleries, there is no consideration flowing from the gallery to the artist when the artwork are sent to the gallery for exhibition, and therefore the same is not a supply. Because section 7 ध्यान करें sir, scope of supply में it was clearly written for a consideration in course or furtherance of business. So there is no consideration, no supply. It is also only when the buyer selects a particular art work displayed at the gallery that the actual supply takes place and applicable GST would be payable at that time. Otherwise, the GST is not applicable till it is there in the exhibition or there in the gallery. एग्जीबिशन एग्जीबिटेड होगा तब तक वो स्टॉक आपके पास ही पड़ा है, ऑल्दो आपने दूसरी जगह दिया है, बट देयर इज नो कंसिडरेशन, देयरफॉर देयर इज नो सप्लाई. अ mere delivery challan would be more than sufficient in these cases, and therefore no GST till it is actually sold. So going back to the file, so we have done till 22, circular number 22. Now 27 onwards we'll be discussing. 99.9% I wish and I'll be doing it tomorrow, and if it, by any chance it is not possible, then on Monday certainly we are going to meet, because Monday and Tuesday I'm in Surat only. I am not going to travel, so certainly we'll be covering up. And yes, for the time being, I'm extremely thankful to all of you for giving me this opportunity of learning GST along with all of you. Thank you very much.